So, I know we've talked a lot about the Canadian Football League being on TV, and actually, you can see games on ESPN2 or ESPN Plus in the States. I
Really?
happen to
Wait,
be on
ESPN
have
Plus,
an
that's
ES.
huge. That's huge.
Well, I wonder. I mean, we've said before that there are games on ESPN2 part of the time. Previous summers, it had been somewhat sporadic, and for this first weekend, I can't quite tell if the ESPN Plus page is just listing what you'd see on ESPN2, or if they would have games on ESPN Plus that aren't on main ESPN networks. But case in point here is, they got it on ESPN, so you have no excuse not to watch it. Now let's get into how this season is going to go, or, well, how I think it's going to go. I could be roasted in a few months for what I say on this show, but I'll give it my best shot. So you look at the Western Conference, you got Calgary, Winnipeg, Edmonton, BC, and Saskatchewan, and truly, I think any team could win this division and any team could finish last. Back in 2019, Calgary Stampeders were the defending Grey Cup champions, but Bo Levi Mitchell got hurt, missed some games, but they had Nick Arbuckle come in and fill in fairly admirably when he was gone. They don't have that safety net now because Arbuckle is on the Toronto Argonauts, so Bo Levi Mitchell is getting up there in age for quarterbacks. But still, you look at the core of the Stamps, I think it's really solid. They are my pick to finish first in the Western Division at 9-5. I think this Western Division is going to be very compressed, as you will see with the rest of my record predictions. Next up, I got the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the reigning champs, at 8-6. Their starting quarterback is known for having injury issues. That is Zach Collaros. They also have Andrew Harris out for the first few weeks of the season. Their stud running back is trying to rush for 1,000 yards at age 34. He's trying to become the fourth running back to rush for 1,000 yards at age 34. The others are legendary Saskatchewan Rough Rider George Reed, legendary Mike Pringle of the Montreal Alouettes, and Washington Redskins tailback John Riggins, who actually did it twice. But yes, Harris has definitely had a decorated career, and I can't count out the Blue Bombers just with what they've done. Next up, I have my Elks at 7-7. They are a hard team to figure out, I'll admit, because they have a new head coach who's not been on the job very long, but he inherits a pretty talented roster, does Jamie Elizondo. Got Trevor Harris, pretty solid quarterback, even though he's in his mid-30s. And the rest of the core of that offense is kind of getting up there in age. You got James Wilder, who came over from the Argos at running back, who's on the high side of 30. You've got Greg Ellingson and Darrell Walker as their lead receivers, who are also 30 and up. They lost Almondo Sewell, their stud defensive tackle in free agency, who went to Montreal.
Ouch.
So I think they're going to be able to put up points, but are they going to be able to stop anyone? That's going to be the key. Now, for my somewhat bold prediction here, I think the BC Lions, who most people have them stuck in the cellar in this division, I think they get into the fourth spot and they make the crossover spot in the playoffs at 7-7. You got Rick Campbell, new head coach, came over from Ottawa over the break, and he went to multiple Grey Cups with the Red Blacks. And so I think he could really turn things around, particularly when you got a former MOP and Mike Riley as your quarterback. If the offensive line is just a little bit better for the BC Lions, I think they're a playoff team. I really do. And then the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I have them in the bottom at 6-8. I could be very wrong on this. It just depends on how well Cody Fajardo does in his sophomore season as this Rough Riders starter. But they lost quite a bit in free agency or to opt-outs, namely guys on defense like Charleston Hughes, who went to Toronto with most of the CFL free agents, honestly. It is going to be very interesting to see who comes out of this group of 5. But going over to the East, I think there's no question who is the best in the Eastern Conference, and that would be the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I have them at 10-4. They got a really good starting quarterback in Jeremiah Masoli. They got the reigning most outstanding player, Brandon Banks, at receiver. And even in case something happens to Masoli, they have Dane Evans, a very good backup, who could be starting for some teams, probably. And a very good defense to boot. So between all that, they're easily the favorite in the East. And the other 3 teams, Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa, I could see anything for those 3. But just looking at their additions in free agency and their quarterback situation, I'm going to go with the Argos at 6-8 to be second in this division.
Can't complain.
I just got a feeling. I think either you're going to see a good year out of McLeod Bethel Thompson, who comes back at quarterback, or Arbuckle takes over and he shows them that he's a young, rising star in this league. Ryan Dinwiddie is their new coach, and we'll have to see what he can do, but I think that he also might make them a little more unpredictable, just not having tape on them, on what he might do. But I also think there is hope for both Montreal and Ottawa to potentially steal that second spot in the East. I have both teams at 5-9, but Montreal has hope because they, like I mentioned, they picked up Armando Sewell along the defensive line in free agency. Vernon Adams was really good in 2019. They got some talent there. And then Ottawa, they have some hope because Paul LaPolice, former Winnipeg OC, takes over as their head coach. And they're going to have Matt Nichols as their starting quarterback, former Winnipeg starter. He's been there and he's done that. So it'll be interesting to see who gets that spot. But I once again think that we're going to have the 4th team in the West take over as a crossover opponent into the East. So going to our playoffs, we got 2 versus 3 in both conferences, but in this case, the East, instead of having the East 3, we're going to have the West 4 seed. So you have BC going to Toronto. I'm going to take the Lions in that one, and you'll have Winnipeg hosting Edmonton. I'll go with Edmonton in that one, so you set up the Western Conference final, which will be Calgary hosting Edmonton. I'll go with the Stampeders in that one. And in the East final, you'll have Hamilton hosting BC. I'll go with Hamilton in that one. And in the Grey Cup final, I'll go with Hamilton to win the Grey Cup over the Stamps for their first Grey Cup title since 1999.
Nice. Although I will say, I am rooting for the Elks to have their first inaugural season now, bring home the cup. If only.
Me too. I certainly think they'll have a top offense in the league, but yeah, how the defense comes together is going to be a real challenge for them this year. They still have Kwaku Boateng at defensive end. He's a very good player. He'll get after the passer. But beyond that, they got some questions at linebacker.
It could work, though. Ask Drew Brees.
That's true. But yes, you should be able to see the Winnipeg versus Hamilton game Thursday night on ESPN2. And I also think you could see the Ottawa and Edmonton game on ESPN2 Saturday night. So tune in, set your DVRs, whatever. You need to watch the CFL. It is good football. They just throw the ball all over the field. Like, if you're a fantasy football fan, you're going to love this league. It's more wide open than the NFL is. You have all sorts of motion. You can run toward the line of scrimmage at the snap if you're a receiver. Some rule differences, and I think it really spices it up. Well, that's my 2 cents on the CFL this season. There's definitely going to be more to come.
And we can't wait.
For sure not. But now